Hi, this is Robin with Weight Loss Apocalypse, and I'm bringing to you my first YouTube of the year. This is a clip from a client I've worked with for a few years now, off and on, and I would have to say that she has suffered so much because of her desire to be loved and wanted, which is pretty much, don't you agree, something that we all want? But in this case, being loved and wanted is attached to being special, superior, above the norm, above the rest. And in that description, you could say this is somewhat narcissistic. So in this session, she is so desperate, so miserable, and so stuck, and we're discussing the narcissism and this desire to be loved through superiority, and how catastrophic it feels that if you can't have your specialness, your sparkle, your, whatever it is you've attached love and superiority to, that if you can't have it, it feels horrible, like isolation, loneliness, inferiority, disgust. So we're discussing this narcissism and what you're going to have to be willing to do to recover from it, which is be inferior. Again, that idea of inferiority is in relation to the narcissistic idea of what superiority is. So often people think, well, isn't that just feeling bad about yourself? Well, yeah, of course. Relative to narcissism, you feel bad about yourself, and a lot of people don't see that. And it's not even feeling bad about yourself, it's feeling bad that you don't meet this external obligation or expectation you've committed to, which is narcissistic in and of itself, because it's presented in the context of superiority. Anyway, so of many of the clients that come to me have this and suffer from it. And so to surrender the body image aspect of their ego and survival feels like death. It feels like the assumption is that you will live forever feeling shameful and disgusted with yourself. But that's with the assumption that you will forever want the superiority, the image you've attached superiority and survival to. So, all right, well, enjoy this. Happy New Year.
Taking me on bike rides, and I was his favorite little Chrissy, and my sisters were jealous, and I never had a little sister that came along and took it from me. Like, I was kind of forever the little baby, little favorite. I don't fucking know. Fucking knows. But yeah, it's childish. It's embarrassing.
Why would it be embarrassing?
Just feels gross.
Well, let's not judge it, because it's true. Because it's true. That's why it's embarrassing, because it's true.
Yeah. It's just, I've never come right. It's just to come right out and say it, and to be dealing with it in the light of day, not have it be my little dark secret.
Yeah, it's true, and that's what you're embarrassed about, that this is the reality. I can create a facade all I want, but the reality of it is inside is I'm severely paralyzed by my need to be the center of attention.
Yep, exactly.
And that center of attention has been, what do you really get out of it? In reality, is it really that beneficial when you add to it the cost to get there?
Yeah.
So this is what I mean by you suffer a ton, and it's to achieve something outside of your reality. So you suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer for that achievement. But what if that achievement isn't, what if you stop? What's going to happen? What feelings come up?
First thing I thought of is that people just forget about me.
Yes. Okay. Yes, they're going to forget about you. Let's accept that right now. Let's
Yeah.
feel that out. Feel does that feel painful? What's it feel like when people forget about you?
Yes, it feels painful.
Okay, well, what's worse? The suffering that you've been doing to try to be remembered? All that suffering, or I mean, go into the feel of just no one knowing you exist. How does that feel? Compare the two. Which one's worse?
Wow. Well, being forgotten about feels a lot calmer.
Yeah, it requires no work on your part. You do nothing. You do nothing. Right? That's what you've been afraid of.
Yeah.
So go back into having to be the center of attention. Tell me how that feels.
Chaotic.
Horrible.
And separate.
It should feel horrible. Like a horror story.
Like a slave.
Yep. That's the suffering. That's what I was talking about. The suffering is very, very different than the pain of being alone, of not being remembered. The suffering is there to avoid aloneness. Wouldn't you agree? So you can't have both together. You're either in suffering trying to avoid being alone or in isolation or forgotten or not wanted or whatever it is. Your suffering is only in trying to reject aloneness. So the fact that you are not accepting aloneness is why you suffer. So if you can go into accepting aloneness, go into accepting of that aloneness, what happens to all the suffering?
Just disappears.
Yeah, because if you accept it, it means that you are going towards it willfully. That you're not being shoved, you're not being, you're not doing what you're told even though you don't want to. It is like I'm doing it willfully because I would rather. If given the choice to be alone or to suffer, which one is less horrible?
God, being alone.
Right?
For sure.
So wouldn't you rather want the aloneness and the pain than to have, and this is the thing, when you go into suffering, you still have that pain, you do, but you're constantly trying to remove it. It's almost like the pain exists at all times. You're just trying to cover it up, run away from it, hide it, push it around. You're constantly trying to fend it off, like perpetual war that never stops. So you're living in pain and suffering in that respect, constantly trying to deny what you don't want. That exists.
God.
Right? So you never really get any relief because they're continuously going on forever. So if you just go into pain as if you're accepting it, you go into accepting no one's going to remember me. Accept that willfully. What happens to the suffering?
It just vanishes. There's just no need for it.
There's all of a sudden what happens to the shackles, what happens to the war, what happens to the controllingness, what happens to your jealousy, what happens to all of that.
It just kind of fades away.
It all just goes bye-bye, it's gone. It just, because there's no point to being jealous. You don't want people center of attention. You don't want it. You would rather be ignored.
Yeah.
Because in being ignored, you're free. You're free to be what you really are. You're free to be more connected. Wouldn't you rather someone else be the center of attention so that you can just relax, have a good time, have good conversation with people, really care about people now? Like actually have care for others? Because you can't have that when it's all about you being the center.
When I get, that's also been a huge part of my identity that I've inflated. I'm the best friend. I'm the most loyal. I'm the one they all come to talk to. I'm the one, it's been...
Do you really want that? Do you really want that? I mean, think about all the pressure and all of the shifty eyes and paranoia around who they're talking to, and they're not talking to you, and just think about how disconnected you are in reality. Do you
And like
really want that role?
scorekeeping. Oh, he called you? Oh, really? Like,
Yes. How do you like that? How do you like that?
Gross. It's gross.
How does it? Is it worth it? I mean, that's because that's what you're committed to at this point, because that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's suffering.
You don't even know how many. That's just like been such the cause of so much drama and conflict,
suffering.
Upset,
everything
bullshit.
Is yes.
It's like that's the center. Like I've just hit upon it, which I had never.
Good. So do you really want all that, or would you rather just be the person that people go to just enjoy themselves with, rather than constantly need you as a rescuer? You're so important. Do you really want to be important? Do you really want that importance? Because you can't be real anymore.
Or to just not get a rush off either way. You know, like I was talking to a friend about like this guy into my body and like how I was like, oh, but you know, it's brought up some stuff for me, and they were like, oh, well, why would you, you know, why is it bringing up stuff for you? I mean, he really likes your body. He told you he likes your body, and I was like, you don't understand. Like, that's not the point. The point is, I don't want to get any charge on either end, whether he likes my body or whether he doesn't like my body. Like, I can't be at the whim of what other people think of me. Like, and they just stared at me blankly. Like, but that's the thing. It's like, sure, if I'm, like, if someone wants to come to me and I'm a great Ben, great, but I'm not getting off on it. Like, it's just neutral. Everything's neutral that's happening.
Yeah, well, you only get that neutrality when you are okay with not being special.
Yeah, and that's so much of my identity, being special. Like, I just can't even. It's not like the price is. It's just getting stale and old. Trying to hold on to it. It's like.
Yeah, it's not worth it. So yeah, so when you get to the point where you're like, I'd rather be dull, boring, and nobody. If it means
that sounds
freedom.
So good to me right now.
Well, because that choice relieves you from hell.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you rather? I mean, look at the choice. If you cannot face inferiority, and you cannot release superiority, because if you surrender that specialness, if you let that identity go, the special Chrissy, you know, if you let that go, if you let her go, you have to face not being special. So there's both sides. I'm giving up what I get out of it.
Yeah.
Which also means I get rid of all the shit I gotta do to get it.
Yeah.
That's the suffering, all the drama, all the conflict, all the self-centeredness, all the pity, all the loathing, all the poor me of self, me.
You're just being on high alert all the time. Just high alert all the time.
Yeah, survival because you are not doing well. You're actually extremely insecure, right?
Yeah.
With the illusion like you're totally got your shit together, which you clearly don't, right? So then on the other side of that is you're not special. This is going to be a good one for you to rewatch. You're going to be like, Rabbit is such a bitch!
I mean, yeah,
So the other side of that is I'm not special. People aren't going to come to me for advice. I'm not the know-it-all. I'm not the center of attention. So compare those two evils, if you want to call them that. You're going to be bland. It's going to be like nothing. It's going to be horrible. No one's going to pay attention to me, right? Go into that pain, because that's what it feels like to the narcissist, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To the special Chrissy, she's having a fit and feels really sorry for herself. So do you see how the feeling sorry for yourself is really just the old Chrissy having a tantrum, wanting to get what she wants? Saying, you should be my slave so that I can feel special.
Yeah, that's true.
So
it does feel like a tantrum. It really does.
Yes, and a lot of people get stuck there. But you're telling me I have to be fat in my ankle. It's my ankle, Robin. I need to be thinner. You
For my
just,
body, I did this to my body, and I do feel bad, but
well,
I
you
need
did the
to,
best you could with what you knew, and if you didn't know
yeah,
the whole entire diet industry is a big, huge scam of
yeah,
failure, and everybody who's in there is getting fatter. So the
yeah,
battle with weight is a perpetual battle that you do every year, all the time, all year long for decades, and it never stops until you decide I'm rather be fat, and then it stops.
yeah,
Crazy how that works. But going into the pain of I have to be fat, it's like saying, well, then I will never have a boyfriend. Nope, you're never gonna have a boyfriend because those are the things you're not willing to accept. You'd
yeah,
rather suffer than to not have a boyfriend. Well, which one's worse, really? Have you suffered enough to where you'd rather not have a boyfriend? If it means you have to suffer to be thin to have someone like you, wouldn't you rather not have a boyfriend?
yeah,
Me too. When do you get to the point where you're done changing who you are to please someone else just so that they give you the specialness? Oh, you're special to me because you do all of these favors for me, right? It's called the narcissist thrives on other narcissistic desires, right?
yeah,
People who are narcissistic like you because you'll do everything for them to get what you want out of it, which is you're so special. I love you the most.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you're feeding off of other narcissists. You're just and you're competing for who's better than who in a relationship. It's weird. But it
Yeah,
makes sense when you're stuck in survival mode this way. So don't feel bad about it. I would do the same thing under the same belief system, the same needs, to the same degree. If I was in all of that, I'd do the same thing. Don't you see that too? It's
yeah,
not like you've known all this shit and you did it anyways.
yeah,
You actually thought this was the right thing to do, the right way to be. That people who are unique and superior are actually better people, and you wanted to be a better person. Is there something really wrong with that? No. You just went the route of narcissism to find some sense of evolution, not realizing it's like cannibalizing yourself. For evolution, it's actually regression, right? Because it's inherently self-destructive and it's pervasively destructive to everybody around you. So it's actually a very dangerous state of mind to be in for yourself and for others around you. Because you'll pick a fight. You create like drama in your head and you think you're right and you'll be like, oh no, you didn't. And then people will be like, what's her problem?
exactly.
Oh, you know what you did. It's all in your head, right? And it's full of drama and it's still once again giving you attention. So you get something out of that. You have to surrender all that attention.
Uh-huh.
Is it worth the suffering? Have you suffered enough yet? So you'll hear that not just with me and you talking, but in other sessions that you're watching with other clients. Did you suffer enough?
Yeah.
Some people got to suffer some more.
Yeah.
To me, the suffering isn't that big of a deal. I mean, for me, it's a big deal. I'll never do it again. For reals. If I have a choice, I'm not going to make that one. I'd rather be inferior, insignificant, not liked, made fun of, left out in the middle of the ocean to survive floating on my back. All of those sound better than your state of mind.
Yeah.
The state of mind you're in is hell. The darkest, darkest pits of hell of isolation and self-torture around self-centeredism. And you're not surviving well in it. You're clearly suffering.